Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We're back again with a culture topic. If you follow me on Instagram, Jay Doran _ the culture man, you see videos on different topics on business, culture, philosophical concepts around business and culture and life. And today we're expanding on one of the topics, which is how do you attract top talent? So if you follow me on Instagram, Jay Doran _ the culture man, look through the Culture Matters podcast for a weekly culture topic where I expand on these thoughts. Why I think it's valuable is because if you find interest in that clip, my goal is to go deeper in these longer conversations. So, how do we attract top talent? I think the first thing we do is we recognize that our culture today around business theory, I think the preconditions are false. The assumptions are false in the precondition. The assumptions are that it's about the other, or it's an overemphasis on the other. So, how do we attract top talent? We're immediately thinking in the interview, what does this person offer? And that's fine. That's an important component. But I think we have to recognize in ourselves first, what do we offer? See, there's a self-awareness process to interviewing others. And it's being firstly recognizing that there's a possibility that what I'm seeking in the other is an overcompensation for what I'm not acting out in myself. So, for example, many of the trainings and the ideologies in the business context have overemphasis on other people's values. Like we have to hire based on the values. However, what if we're not aware that we're not actually living up to the values, our values ourselves is as management, as leadership? And not like, oh, we're 20% off, but we're 80% off. There becomes a downward pressure, an overemphasis on the people. And then it leads to this dog chasing its tail effect where we're never finding the right people because what we don't realize is that we're not the top talent. We're actually not as good as we think we are. We're not as engaged as we think we are. We're not as responsible as we think we are. Now, it isn't an either or where it's then becomes an overemphasis on ourselves and we're just beating ourselves up and we're in a position of over respond or like over we're overcompensating for other people's irresponsibility. No. But in the pursuit of equilibrium, if the pursuit of meaning, we have to be responsible and we want responsible people. So how do we break this chicken or the egg? Here's some ways that we attract top talent. Oh, and why it's important is because if we don't have this conversation, we may end up chasing our tail. We may end up being in a position, if you're listening to this right now, I just can't find the right people. People just don't want to work. Uh, you know, this generation is different. All of these things. There's partial truths in all of that, but fundamentally, human beings, people, you, me, we aspire. We aspire to inspire before we expire. We need people that inspire us. We need leadership. We need purpose. We need example. And so, okay, here's how we attract top talent. Don't read. Don't think. Don't plan. Don't work. Don't care. Don't sacrifice. Don't put yourself out there. Don't do any of those things. You pay someone enough, you may actually get someone that doesn't like you, that doesn't enjoy the culture, that's willing to just work as hard as they possibly can for their own family. And that might work for a while, but it won't last forever. And in this world of overwhelming complexity and ever increasing expansion and speed, you don't have the ability to control others through incentives and fear like we used to as business owners maybe in the past. The grass is always greener on the other side. Due to access of information, technological advancement, people that can search for employment have never had more leverage, have never had more opportunity, have never had more, at least the perception of opportunity, have never had um, exposure on the level that we have today. Simultaneously, values are shifting, values are changing. The freaking whole culture is unclear of what it stands for and what's the truth, and what, the big questions are becoming, more and more in our face every day. And we see this in the pop cultural conflicts of people just being unable to get along around these unanswerable questions in pop culture and politics and around faith. And so we see this and all of that is seeping, all of that affects us in our day-to-day business life. And ultimately, how we attract top talent would be to be top talented ourselves. To Are we reading? Not like an academic, but are we putting ourselves in a position for betterment? Not overly so, to the point where we're not actually leading by example in our businesses, but are we developing as human beings? Are we thinking? Are we questioning our assumptions? Are we capable of hearing other people's points of views? We may think we are, but we may not actually be as good as we think we are. We may just be in a vacuum where we're surrounded by yes people. We're in the founder's trap, if we're a founder, where we think we hear other points of view, but whenever we actually do, it triggers us so deeply, so quickly, so instantaneously, that other party is immediately the enemy and a critic and a hater, and falls into some psychological camp. And no one's there to tell us, oh, no, you're just wicked, wildly emotional and erratic and judgmental and unable to compartmentalize. So think, set up mediums of thought. That's where, for example, if, an example where if that you're not thinking as much as you think you're thinking is you don't like your team meetings. And that goes if you're the leader, like the positional leader in that dynamic, or you're the someone participating. If you don't like your team meetings, then you're definitely not thinking. Thought is not occurring. Something is stopping thinking from happening. To think, you have to speak freely. You have to be able to tell the truth, your view of things, and through the sharing of your view of things and others' view of things, as Rousseau would say, there's your truth, my truth, the facts, and then the truth. There's a subjectivity to, right? Okay, I see this part of it. You might see that part of it. Through dialogue, we're unpacking, we're separating the wheat from the chaff from a knowledge standpoint, and we're getting closer to what is the truth. We're bringing all of our different genes and environments and experiences and insights into a conversation. And we're getting to the bottom of things. And that is deeply enjoyable for human beings. Deeply enjoyable for human beings. We need that. And we need that if we're going to have a successful business. We have to be able to speak. So if you don't like your team meetings, that is connected to thinking. You may not be thinking, or not nearly as much as you need to. Now, another one is don't plan. How can you plan if you're not thinking? How can you think if you're not speaking? How can you speak if you don't read or learn? I'm not in a proactive state. I'm in a reactive state. I'm in that unthinking state, that emotional, reactive, responsive state. I need to be conducting energy. I need to be interacting with the mind, right? Through my physical interaction with content. I need to be exploring ideas, swimming in ideas at some level outside of myself, which will can help me become more liberal, liberal in the sense of liberal minded, like John Locke's liberality. Um, you know, we can talk to each other. We don't have to necessarily agree with the ideas. We could talk to each other. We agree that we each matter more than the ideas that we carry. We, as in our potential for humanity. What the hell does this have to do with how do you attract top talent? because I want to change the narrative for you. Attracting top talent is going to come as a consequence of being top. Being top. Do you actually work on yourself? The act of reading, the act of learning is a process of working on oneself. I didn't write writing here, but I should write because I have some notes from thinking through this. Writing one's thoughts is how we think. We've got to be able to think. If we can't speak freely in a meeting, we're not going to be thinking. And then that leads to don't plan. Don't plan. How can we plan on an individual sense or as a group sense if we can't, we're not thinking. And if we're not speaking, we're not thinking. If we're not writing, we're thinking less clearly. Reading is a component of self-development. How we read can increase our awareness or not. Same with writing. The people that we surround ourselves by. But that's the thing. When you hear, the people you surround yourself by. But if you're the problem, you're only going to be surrounding yourself by people that agree with you or tell you what to think. So that often happens in personal development when people hire people to tell them what to think, people that the implication is that person is better than them. Like if you're just listening to this, like, Jay, yeah, everything he's saying is right. You might genuinely believe that, but be careful because you don't want me to be thinking for you. You want to be thinking with me. But then, because then you're just gonna have people around you that are like drooling over you, how you might be drooling over me. You don't even know me. Spend some time with me. I might be an asshole. So don't plan. Now, how do we plan? We have to think. It would be good to be able to speak and to write to think. We have to be able to think. We have to be able to emotionally embrace the past. Look at past, like Kierkegaard. Life can only be understood backwards; it must live forwards. We have to be able to look at the past, draw from what we learned, what we did wrong, what we might have done right, and we expand on that in the future. We have to have a. We're in the past, we're in the future, and we're in the present all at once. We're looking both ways before you cross the street. So don't plan. You will not attract top talent. I'm doing the inverse here. Don't read, don't think, don't plan, don't work. Being disengaged is not going to attract top talent. This is the gripe I have with a lot of with the gripe I have with personal development is when it swings too far towards the other, and it makes us think we're taking responsibility when we're actually still in a victim state, and we're putting all responsibility on others. It's extremely it's vital if we're attracting top talent to be talented ourselves, and that means we've got to be living the things that we expect of others. Got to be living them, and we've got to be engaged. So we attract top talent by being engaged. There was recently on a conversation with Christopher Ty, who's been on the podcast episode 208. We were talking about one of the ideologies in the business space. We were talking about the general business ideology that I think is an overemphasis on employee engagement as a consequence to an underemphasis on customer value, service, experience. Which I think is a consequence of the cultural tectonic plates shifting. When in Drucker's days, it was the purpose of a business was to create a customer. Today, the purpose of a business is to take care of an employee or to empower an employee or to inspire an employee. That has consequences. And I was making a point that in our general culture today, we're suffering the consequences of overbearingness on the generation that has come up, where it's that there's too much entitlement, too much resentment, a lack of a clarity and purpose, and ambition and drive focused on the capitalistic vertical that's arguably leading to all of the things I was saying earlier about our inability to have good team meetings. That's where you see elections where people can't talk to each other. It's like a big team meeting. But ultimately, that the assumptions that the business theorists of today, like the business literature today, is operating on assumptions from a long time ago that are wrong. That overemphasis on employee is wrong. And we're seeing the 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 we're seeing the fruit of that in our culture today, our macro culture today, like a bad fruit, with a worm in it. And businesses are suffering and will be suffering as time goes on, as businesses follow this bad script, which is this implicit desire to control the employees, to overemphasize positional leadership on the employees versus a focus on customers, a focus on of managements to lead by example versus speak unto. It's like this show, if taken too far, if all I do is talk at you, at the other, that's all I do. That's my whole business, is just talking at you through this medium. I'll become your idol. I'll become, some portal of ideology, but I'll lose myself. I'm not doing the other things I need to do outside of this medium to actually embody the values and test the theories that I'm preaching. I've got to live what I'm talking about. I've got to be in conflict with people that don't agree with what I say. And part of that is selling customers, is attempting to earn business, as because the values are challenged, the theories are challenged, the assumptions are challenged, my character is challenged. I become better and stronger and more top. If we're talking about top talent, I'm developing and being shaped by the interactions of potential customers versus succumbing to the diminishing returns of the relationships of the current and tenured customers. It's like not going to the gym for a year or 2 years. Doesn't matter how fit you were, you're gonna look like garbage. Your body eventually. It's not the aesthetic, is right. The aesthetic is like a leading indicator. The lagging indicators, because you didn't go to the gym, you're gonna die earlier. So the aesthetic, we get caught up. That's the leading indicator. That's what you see first. You get fat, but what you see later is you die. So my point in being here is read, think, plan, work. That was the next one, was that be engaged. And in our culture today, systems like, even I disagreed so deeply with the entrepreneurial operating systems ideology of the visionary and the integrator. There is no such thing as a visionary and an integrator. It's a helpful heuristic for someone that feels uh, essentially has hit a certain ceiling in their anxiety fueled salesmanship, that now they have employees. They're not just on an island alone as the founder, that needed customers to then eventually have accountability from employees. Because that's the thing, it's the overemphasis of accountability of employees, but it's actually should be more responsibility and employees holding them accountable, because they're accountable to the employees and they're responsible for the customers. And when they're irresponsible to customers, they end up becoming overly holding the employees to account. But they have it backwards. They need to be servants to the customers, meaning they're responsible to the customers because they're held to account by the customers. So they're responsible in their behavior. They're living the values. The employees are modeling the ownership's behaviors because they actually believe it. They actually see how they work. They actually trust them. They actually see humility. They see integrity. They see their actual character in action, because responsibility is modeled, not it's modeled. It's experienced through the senses. Accountability is given in speech or taken in action. Telling the truth and then quitting or getting fired, but from the organization to the individual, and then the individual can tell the truth or they can't tell the truth. And if as owners we're not reading and thinking, we're not telling the truth, we don't have a plan, we're not going to feel secure enough to handle an emotional negative response that comes through our body when our employees tell us the truth, because our conscious knows, like Socrates' daemon tells him not to leave the city but to drink the hemlock. Like, you follow your conscience. Your conscience knows when you're lying to yourself, and your conscience knows when you haven't done it. And instead of taking personal responsibility, you're just going to project on your employees that they're not good enough, they're not doing enough, and they're not talented enough, and it's all their fault. And all the damn literature is agreeing with you and saying you've got to do this for the employees, you got to get rid of these bad employees, and it's like, but the bad employees are modeling your behavior below your awareness and theirs. The good employees are going to leave you if you stink, or if you used to be in shape and now you're fat, or you used to be the best salesperson, now you haven't sold shit, or you used to be the number one business person, and now you're just not that great anymore because you're not actually engaged in your business. Why? Because you hit your lid. You overshot your goals. You went farther than your identity would permit you to. You need new goals. You need new vision. You need new books to read. You need smarter mentors. You need people in your life that are going to tell you the truth. And these systems, these ideologies, like that visionary integrator, which is a half truth, if it's taken too far, it actually creates bureaucracy and destroys the culture, because the quote unquote, the person that considers themselves vision, they stop integrating, because integrating comes the consequence of acting out values, which is the consequence of responsibility, which is a relationship between the management, like the highest leadership, and the customers, that the employees model that and they start acting that way below awareness. And then above awareness, or at awareness, everyone talks to each other, and they can tell the truth and can plan and think and work and enjoy the sacrifice, ultimately so that their family improves and they grow as a person, even if they don't even know they're growing, and the life is meaningful and blah blah blah, and it's imperfect, and there's no utopia, and there's problem after problem after problem. And if you don't want that, don't start a business. Say that again. The integrator, okay? No one is an integrator. Integration happens from telling the truth, handling the truth, and living in truth, which is a component of vision, planning, work, sacrifice, burdening conflict, and the complementarity of teams, and the pursuit of something better than what is. It's Peterson's maps of meaning, right? There's what is and what should be, unexplored territory, explored territory, and the interaction in between, and the relationship, our individual relationship with hope and anxiety, and how we navigate that, and how let's just say on an individual level, how we navigate conflicts or the uncertainties that are out of our control, as we work towards that aim, a higher aim. And we do that with others, and we're able to think and speak and work together. It's meaningful. It builds us up. It makes us better. We can bring that to our families, and we become integrated in a community. We become integrated in the culture, and we can change the world with our courage. That's Solzhenitsyn's whole narrative, about how nothing could be taken from the honest man, or something to that effect. So it's like, if you want to attract top talent, start by not read, think, write, plan, work, be engaged, care. You may not want to do it anymore. If you're an owner, sell your damn business. If you're not going to work, sell your business. But damn well, get the right people around you that don't have an incentive for you to sell, to tell you the truth and help you figure out what the hell you want. Because if you start something, finish it. You don't get a second chance. You don't you build a business 40 years, you sell it to somebody smarter than you. And smart doesn't just mean genetics. It can mean they know things you don't. They are in rooms you're not in, and they get that from you. And they might have the best of intentions. You might regret it 3 years later. You try to buy that damn thing back, and now part of your identity is gone forever. You're gonna be sad. Oh, what? Because your kid couldn't take it over because you didn't get the right help you needed to get them on the same page as you. So, and they really wanted it, because you can't have a conversation with them. And hey, in fairness, it's not easy. It's not easy. You could lose. That game is not fun to lose. But think about that. Well, we couldn't talk about it. We couldn't transition it. So we're going to sell something could be worth 500 million. We're going to sell it for a 500 million valuation, but we're only going to get 30% up front. So we're going to get 150 million up front. And then there's a chance that it might not, we may never get the remainder, that 70%. And so, all right, we get none or we get a little bit more. And we sold our business for quote unquote 500 million, but we only got half a quarter of a billion, so 250 million. So we sold because it didn't, it was out of our control. And the people we sold it to, we didn't know enough to ask the right questions. And they were able to burn it to the ground and still make tons of money. And now we've lost a part of our identity. Our legacy can't continue to go on, which does matter because at the end of the day, there's a subjective meaning to this damn world that we get to write our script. And it's if you really want that, then no one could tell you otherwise. So now that's not happening. There's no legacy. Oh, and you got a half of what you really was worth. And now what? Now you're miserable because the money managers are giving you a little social security drip of 4% at a quarter billion, which is what 10 million a year, 8 million or 833,000. Is that 833,000 a month? Yeah. And you're living on that. You get divorced for the second time. Now you have a spouse, significantly younger that you can control, and then the rest is history. No one will remember you in 100 years because you were pulled into the wake of nihilism and despair and suffering and hedonism. This has been a fun episode of the Culture Matters podcast. I think that as I do these, I might become more of what I'm telling you guys to be, more thoughtful and honest and yeah, this is fun. So it's like therapy. Thanks for joining me on the Culture Matters podcast. I'm excited to go into the world and culture today. Oh, here's the last one. Don't put yourself out there. Yeah. You got to put yourself out there. If you're not engaged, you're not going to put yourself out there. If you're not sacrificing, you're not engaged. If you're not engaged, you're not working. If you're not working, your people can't model you. And your customers don't like you, they won't tell you out of loyalty. The people won't tell you out of fear. If you're not planning, you're not doing your damn job. If you're not thinking, you can't plan. If you're not reading, you can't think. If you're not writing, what you're reading probably is just a bunch of dogma. And we'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.